Hi everyone, I hope you're having a good day. My name is Therese and this is Elizabeth and Antonia. We are going to do a little bit of a different talk today, so it's split into a couple of parts. We're going to do a bit of a talk with me and Elizabeth, talking about how to sell on Instagram. And then we're doing a live Instagram audit with Antonia afterwards. She's very bravely volunteered. And then we'll do questions if we have time. So, Antonia, if you don't know, she has a really lovely independent shop in Enfield. So we'll do a proper introduction a bit later. And this is our social media handles. Do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yes, I'm Elizabeth Stiles, UK, on Instagram. My background is in fashion retail buying, so I worked as a buyer for about 8 years maybe, for Next, Miss Selfridge and Asda. And then I worked at a supplier as a sales manager for lots of different high street brands. And about 4 years ago, I kind of just felt like it was time to move into the independent world. It seemed like that moment in The Wizard of Oz when you open the door and it was all like colourful over there and like the fast fashion thing was kind of behind me. And I now work with lots of different independent fashion and textiles brands on their mindset, manufacturing, and marketing.
And my name is Therese. My business is called Small Business Collaborative. I have spent the last 14 years or so in the home and gift industry. I used to be in sales, as I used to exhibit at these shows. And now I help small businesses start and grow their wholesale. But I also built my business on Instagram, so that's why we're talking about Instagram today.
So we're going to be covering 5 different sections today. We always start with the mindset because I know that there is lots of things kind of mentally holding you back from sharing online. Like using it for discovery, using it for storytelling, using it to nurture your audience, and then most importantly, actually using it to sell. But we have put sell at the end on purpose because I think people kind of see it as the only reason that you would be using it. But it's just one of the many reasons to use it. And if you do it in this order, the selling works really well.
So the first step is your mindset. I don't know if anyone here feels like a bit scared of showing up online. I certainly did when I started my business. It was not something that came natural. We're scared of like judgment from others, saying the wrong thing, looking silly. All these different emotions come up because like of a certain generation, we never thought we'd be like taking selfies and videoing ourselves on the regular, right? So it is a lot about your mindset. There's really nothing to worry about. We have to step outside of that fear and outside of our comfort zone to continue to grow our businesses. There's not really any two ways around it. You probably already stepped outside of your comfort zones for a lot of other things, and social media and Instagram is no different. It's, we have to just take action and take steps towards that. And, people's attention span is pretty short, so they don't care if you washed your hair that day or, if your mascara is a bit smeared or something. They're not going to remember that. They're going to remember what you shared and what you said. They're not going to think about the t-shirt you wore, I think a lot of people discover products online and on Instagram. I certainly use it as my personal wish list. I save a lot of inspiration pictures, a lot of products that I think, that will be good for so-and-so. That's what I'm there to do, not to judge anyone about what they're wearing that day.
And the next point is one of my favorite things is just to assume people are interested. I think it was probably the best bit of advice that I ever got given, was just to assume the best, because as our minds work, they do automatically always assume the worst. It's not just you that always has these negative feelings and thoughts and fears. And I think, as an example, we're going to take Beyonce and think if she sold out Wembley and said, everyone bought a ticket to her show, and she was stood backstage thinking, I'm not really sure if I should go out there and put the show on. maybe people aren't actually here to see me. And the thing is, everyone's bought a ticket to her show, and therefore she assumes people want to see what it is that she's going to show. And it's kind of the same with your Instagram. People don't follow you like willy-nilly these days. They make a real conscious effort about who they're putting onto their phone and into their feed and into their lives effectively. So if somebody has chosen to follow you, that is a reason to show up and kind of give them a show, I guess, and give them something to watch. I think, you know, if there are people following you, it's because they want to hear what it is that you've got to say. And by you saying, you know, oh, maybe they're not interested, or maybe they'll think this of me, you're only really kind of disappointing the people that are there to see something. So, yeah, assume the best, assume people are interested, and give them something to watch.
Also, people are super nosy. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm really nosy. Like, we talk about how nosy we are sometimes, but, you know, they want to see that little bit of extra. That's the whole charm with social media, right? That you get to see the behind the scene, and you get to be nosy without being a creep, essentially. So the final point on your mindset is that you don't have to be a completely different person online from what you are in real life. So if you are an introvert and you're quite shy, you do not have to show up and dance and do silly videos. If you are really funny, you're not going to be all of a sudden not professional just because you lead with being funny. You know, you can show up just as you are. You don't have to share everything. You can focus on your content pillars, and you focus on just a few. So your content pillars is like buckets of themes. So your product could be one, behind the scenes could be one, your location, if you have a physical shop like Antonia, could be one. I mean, it could even be your pet or your team or your family, depending on what you're comfortable with sharing. But you set those boundaries. Just because someone else shares everything about their life doesn't mean that you have to. It won't make you connect any less. What will make you connect less is if you share something you're not really comfortable with. So you're not really authentically sharing it. You're just doing it because you have to.
Yeah. The way I kind of think about it is almost like a pie chart. So rather than thinking that you have to share 100% of every area of your life, or even 10% of 100% of your life, you know, and just sharing little bits of snippets of everything that we've mentioned, just take 10% of your life and share 100% of that. So as an example, neither Therese or I share our partners on Instagram. We don't share our family on Instagram. We share like the kind of area that we live in because we live around the corner from each other, but we never actually show the inside of our house, for example. Maybe if you're a parent, you might want to say that you're a parent, but you don't actually show your children. You might show only the back of your children. There is lots of different ways to kind of separate, because I hear it a lot and say, oh, Elizabeth, like I'm a really private person. I don't want to share on Instagram. I'm a really private person too, I promise. Like, it's just that I've picked out flowery dresses, pretty cardigans, my cat, my dog, having curly hair. So they're quite sort of like surface level topics that I talk about, but I'll share everything within that and then go into a lot of depth and be really generous with that for the audience that's following.
And the reason why you do want to share, I suppose it's what makes you unique. If you're in your business and you manage your Instagram, you will be able to connect. It's much easier to connect with a person than a product, right? So you can use yourself and you being the actual person behind the brand to sell to your audience and show up and make a connection with that audience so they come for you. But if you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to be the face of your brand all the time. You know, it's completely up to you. But, you know, we are more likely to buy from a friend than from a stranger. So if you can make some sort of connection with people, they're going to be much more likely to not question your price so much, not overthink their purchases as much as if you were just anyone on the supermarket shelf or something like that. So we have some examples. So if you want to, you can DM us and we can send you the slides afterwards, or you can take pictures of the slides. We're not going to go too heavily into explaining all the examples, but we wanted to give you some examples of accounts that do it their way. So you will see accounts that do focus on video, or some that don't focus on any video, where you will see somewhere you will never really see the face of the brand owner, but you might see the back of the brand owner, So we wanted to kind of show you that you can do it your way, and you can be consistent with it, even if you don't buy into all the should-haves, basically.
Yeah, we'll keep our Instagram up at the end. So if you did want the copy of the slides, just DM us your email address and we'll make sure to get them over to you within the next couple of weeks. And step 2 is discovery. So actually using the platform for discovery and knowing why you're there, essentially, because you might go away and think, Therese and Elizabeth said you need to be consistent on the platform, but I just don't know why. Like, actually knowing what your purpose for using this platform is really, essential. And I guess it's a little bit harder to be discovered on Instagram the way it is at the moment. There's no doubt that it is trickier to be found and to grow your audience in the same way. And I actually did a video the other day that if we think about your sales funnel, TikTok would probably come just above Instagram now for discovery, because everyone is scrolling the For You page. And then you kind of want to transfer people over to your Instagram to nurture them and get to know them. This is how I'm personally using Instagram at the moment, is to actually speak to people in the DMs, build better relationships with people. I don't know about you, but anyone that I follow on TikTok, I don't know their name, I don't know their handle. It is so hard to actually kind of go back to that video, whereas Instagram, it's really nice to build out that community.
Yeah, I know very little about anyone. I mean, apart from you two, basically. I don't know anyone of those people on Instagram, on TikTok, but on Instagram I do. And one thing I would say about Instagram, I know there's been a lot of talks about Instagram being dead, and engagement is done and no one's seeing my posts. And we've seen a lot of posts about this over the spring, summer. And that is not marketing to your customers. That is basically begging for compassion from your peers. So we need to kind of stop that and actually focus on what our audience are there to see from us. They're there to be entertained and to feel good, and maybe go a little bit further on that customer journey and be reminded about your products. They're not there to be feeling guilty about the fact that they're not seeing every single of your posts, and when they do, liking them. So you're basically telling off the people that are engaging with you, which I think, is so easy to do. And I get it, but find a different outlet for that, and focus on what it is you're there to deliver to your audience. I think is really important. Yeah.
And just making sure that you're using it as a consistent first impression across your Instagram and your website and TikTok, if you so wish, any other platforms, maybe your email marketing, just making sure that you are offering that consistent first impression across everything with your visuals, because Instagram is a really great way to convert people into, from followers into customers. But if your Instagram looks one way and your website looks a different way, that transference of the audience going from one to the other, if it doesn't feel smooth, if it's not visually smooth, if they can't see a same color palette and fonts and style of photography, then you will lose them in that gap between the two platforms. So just going back to sense check that you are using the same color palette, same font, same photography style across everything, to make sure that you're kind of moving your customer really smoothly through the buying journey.
Yeah, and same copy as well. And that it's not difficult to find the product that you promoted in your last post. It can't be sold out right, when you're posting it, at least. They can sell out, but, it needs to be easily discoverable on your website. And of course, as with anything, we need to have a bit of a strategy. So you might not be able to do it all, but we have to focus on what our purpose are with the platform. So if it is to drive traffic to your website, is it to get signups for your newsletter? Is it to be discovered? What is it that you want? Or do you want to network and nurture your customer? What is your purpose with the platform? maybe pick 2 or 3, don't try to do them all, and then, that is the beginning of your strategy. It doesn't need to be harder than that. So here are some examples for you of people that are really good. Like we said before, you can screenshot them or you have a little look at them, and we can share the slides if you want later.
I'd say also all of these people are really good at reels. Like you can almost see just from the amount of video sort of clips that are on there, because reels is the best way to get discovered at the moment on Instagram. And if you are kind of hesitating around video, I would encourage you to learn how to use it and get comfortable with it, because the more frustrated you get with it, it's just gonna, I don't know, it's not going anywhere basically. So.
And we purposely picked, so some of these have quite high-tech or beautiful videos, but some of them are very low-tech, and the cameras are shaky, and it's just literally walking around the shop and telling the audience what they're seeing. You can find a way to use video that work for you. You will see, like, Our Lovely Goods, for example, like they do these little videos where you can almost smell the candle in question. That is quite hard to do, but, that doesn't have to be your business. You can make a different type of video if you want, like the walkthroughs in Pencil Me In, for example. So, storytelling.
This is a tricky one to explain, because it's something that you see quite a lot in marketing, but it's like, what does it actually mean? There is actually a really good book that I would recommend called The Story Brand by Donald Miller, and he kind of talks you through how to tell a story online. But essentially you want to go backwards a little bit and sort of like take a few steps back, because what we tend to do is show the perfect product. We're always sort of seeking out that beautiful image, that beautiful final perfect thing that we're going to share with our audience. Perfectionism creeps in, nothing's good enough, when actually what you might be doing there is kind of alienating your ideal audience by only sharing the perfect end product. What we want to do is kind of go back a few steps and think, well, how did that image come about? Why did you choose to design that piece in the first place? What happened when you were trying to take that picture? Did anything fall off the table? Did anything go wrong? Like, just really saying what happened is the best way of describing it, and documenting the process rather than feeling like you need to create content. Those two things are essentially the same thing. And so going right back to the beginning, again, thinking back to slide 1, that people are interested, assume people are interested in how you got to that final image, is a really great place to start.
Yeah, so one example, if you make a candle, is to maybe talk about what inspired that fragrance of the candle, or why you picked that particular wick or wax or vessel. And then maybe you tested lots of different fragrances, and you share that as your beginning. And then the middle could be you pouring the candle, for example, and then the final bit could be you lighting the candle, or to show it in a home somewhere. I think the way I understood what storytelling was the best, I think, is like a cooking show. When you see a cooking show, they always start off talking about the dish they're going to cook, and they talk back and forth, and then they chop a little bit or whatever they do to prep it, and then you see the sizzling pan, and you see the boiling water, and then they always end with tasting. So you always have a really distinct beginning, middle, and end. And if you can do that with your videos and your captions, they're just going to be so much more engaging.
Yeah, any documentary really, like Inside the Factory on iPlayer. I don't know if anyone watches it, but love.
Me.
They made a whole episode on baked beans once, and I watched the full 60 minutes about how baked beans end up in a can, and you think, well, I can't tell a story about my product. If Greg Wallace can make a product last like baked beans last for 60 minutes, then I'm sure you've got more stories to be telling. And as an example here, we also just said that storytelling can really add value. I imagine that everything that all of us sell, we could buy a version of it in Wilkinson's, Tesco, Primark. There's always going to be a cheaper option out there, but why should they buy your one is because of the story that it has attached to it. And there was actually a study that showed 2 different market research groups. One had a bottle of wine that said, this is a red wine, it was made in Italy, a couple of more details, and that's that. And then there was another one that said it was grown with a family vineyard. This is the family, this is their names, this is where in Italy, this is how the grapes were grown. And it kind of said, how much would you pay for each one? And obviously the one with the story was that they actually valued it at double what the other one was. And so they were prepared to pay more once they knew a little bit more about who had made that wine. So that's just another thing to bear in mind, that assuming people are interested, actually, like Therese was saying earlier, it kind of makes people question your prices a little bit less, especially when there's a cheaper alternative out there.
Yeah, oh no, that was wrong. And here's the examples. So these are all actual independent shops, and you can take a picture. I'll leave it up for a sec before we move on to nurturing your customers. Because Instagram is a great place to nurture your customers.
Yeah, essentially, marketing is getting people to know you, like you, and trust you, and talk about your products over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until you're blue in the face. If we had to think about like, oh, why is it that when we start a business, it's only our friends and our family that have bought from us, and it's kind of like a sign of success when a random name pops up into your Shopify and you're screaming, thinking, I don't even know who this person is, that's so exciting. It's not somebody that I know. The reason that people want to support you and your business does start off with your friends and family is because they already know who you are, they like you, and they trust you. And so your job now is to think, well, how did I get those people to know me, like me, and trust me? And how can I get more people to do the same and kind of broaden my circle?
I think a lot of people discover new products on social media now. Even if I find a product in a magazine or on a blog or something like that, I will always go to that brand's Instagram first. That's where I will save that post because I thought, oh, that will be a good present for so-and-so. That's where I will be like, oh, I really want to come back to that one day. If I find a product on TikTok, I do the same. I go and find the brand on Instagram and I save it there, or I might go to their website from there. But I think Instagram is a really, really important part of that discovery journey, and like keep reminding them about you're being there even before they're buying from you.
Yeah, I always use Domino's Pizza as an example when it comes up like this. So if we think of them, obviously they have this huge multi-million-pound marketing strategy, but what's included in that is that they put flyers through your letterbox, they have adverts on during the breaks of the ITV documentary at 9 o'clock, they also have Superman stood on the roundabout holding up the signs, they have the motorbikes, they have the cars, they have the actual shop front, so they never ever let you forget that they are there. And yes, you don't always want a pizza every time they text you 2 for Tuesdays, but when you do want a pizza, they're the first person that you think of. And so, okay, we don't have this multi-million-pound marketing budget because it's unlikely that we would be here if we did. But what we can do is show up regularly on a handful of different platforms using organic content. And so every time, yes, you might not post, and every time somebody needs a water bottle, like that, you might not always capture them every time you post, but when they do need to buy a water bottle, you're going to be the first person that they think of because you've shown up so consistently. And my challenge to you is that whenever you see Domino's Pizza from now on, you have to then use it as a sign to show up for your business, and you'll start seeing them a hell of a lot.
Especially if you're talking about it a lot. So we all buy from people that we like. We already covered that. How do you take your customer on the journey when you're not there? So if you are a brand selling to retailers here, how do you make sure that the customers that pick up your products in other stores and in your stockist stores still connect with you, so they want to buy your candle again, even if it's, you know, going back to that retailer to buy it. How do you communicate that story and make that customer journey consistent? You know, how we talked about it being consistent from Instagram to your website, but it also needs to be consistent from Instagram into the person's home. You know, we're gifting a story nowadays, so we might have slightly tighter gifting budgets this autumn, but I would definitely be focusing on buying things where I can say, oh, I bought it from this business and they do this great thing and it's sustainable this way, or whatever the story is, because then it becomes so much more than just, you know, a card or just a candle. I keep using candle as an example for today. But, you know, we want to make sure that that story goes the whole way to the end consumer. And that's how you're going to get people to really like you and trust you, because it's so consistent. And of course, if people like you, they're also more likely to engage with you. And the whole purpose of Instagram, they want to keep people on the platform for the longest amount of time. So if people do like you and they do engage with you, then more people are going to see your posts. So it's a little bit like, you know, building friendships in a way, but you pick what you share with them. So that's how you get them to like you. I think other ways to get them to like you could be like live selling, for example. That seems to have become really big during the pandemic, but it's continuing to be a good thing. I think it's a particular good if your product needs to be shown off in video content, like maybe it needs to be seen, you know, high drapes or high moves or on different body shapes. Like live selling could be great for lots of different things. And another content that do really well for the like factor is, of course, behind the scenes, where you give them that little bit of snippets about your life, or you throwing at the pottery wheel, or whatever it might be.
Trust.
Yes.
The last one is trust. And I think actually Rosie in the front row here, the lilac top at PR Dispatch, she was talking a lot on a talk she did recently about trust signals. So any PR that you have had using people's logos is a really great way to build trust. So if you've been featured in Home and Living magazine, please make sure that is absolutely everywhere. You're tagging them, you're putting it on your website, you're putting it on your Instagram. If you want to make sure that you're always speaking to your customers, any screenshots of DMs that people have sent you saying, oh my goodness, I gave this to my niece and she like cried when I gave it to her. Don't just take that message and go thank you, or even worse, not reply. Make sure you're screenshotting that message, putting it onto your stories and telling other people what other people are saying about your products, and using those testimonials on your website, on your product pages, on your checkout pages. Your testimonials need to be absolutely everywhere in order to build that trust factor. Taking pictures of you going to the post office. Again, I did something on my Instagram recently that a lot of my clients are really nervous about doing these like post office run pictures, because it might trigger other people who aren't doing so well, or they're worried that it might look like they're showing off in a time when things are tricky. But actually, we just need to reframe it and think, well, times are tough, and if you can inspire other people to show that people are still shopping small, it not only encourages other small businesses to carry on doing the same, but it also encourages your customers to think, oh yeah, I do really want to support her actually, and I'm also going to do shop small.
And it gives you a lot of social proof. You know, yes, we want to be very original, but we also want what other people want. So we're not that original. I think that user-generated content also does this really well. So I'm sure you have heard a lot of talk about user-generated content, but it's going to continue to grow. So if you can encourage your customers to, you know, yes, it's great when they send you a testimonial, but if they can add a picture to that, it's even better. And here are some examples for you.
Yeah, like I said, if the pictures don't come out so great, just drop us your email on a DM later and we'll make sure to send it over on email as well.
For sure. Oh, and actually, Life Story Edinburgh, I put that on because I bought 2 lamps from her, because she sold them to me in the DMs. Like, selling in the DMs can be great. You know, if someone has been like following your business for a long time, all she did was reply to a story where I said I was moving and I needed a new bedside light. And she sent me like 5 options or something, and then I bought it right there and then. And it wasn't money I was supposed to spend either. And I didn't ask her how much it was. So, you know, selling in the DMs can be really good. And then that leads us on to selling, which is our favorite topic, pretty much.
I know this talk was called like how to sell on Instagram, but the reason we can't just like jump straight to this is because this won't work unless you have nurtured your audience. You almost want to earn the right to sell to your audience by providing all of that value, building the relationships with them, getting to know them, sharing the content, sharing the behind the scenes, literally all of the stuff that we've been working up to. But if you feel a bit gross or like icky about selling, always think about service over sales. So that the store that in Edinburgh that Therese was talking about, she was providing a really good service. She wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to slide into her DMs and sell her these lamps. She's thinking, she's just said she needs a lamp. Let me show her the lamps I have on offer. She's probably unpacking boxes. She's busy. She doesn't have time to be browsing. Let me show an edited selection of things that I think
great.
She would like.
I would have gone into a
happy.
Pinterest hole. It would have taken weeks. I would probably still have no light.
I think people assume like, oh, if I sell, there's, you know, people are going to hate me, or it's just that people are going to feel trapped into buying something. But all she was doing was really offering you a choice, and saying, you know, I have these available if you so wish, not like buy it now or else.
I always say that, you know, selling is something we do for people. It's not something we do to them. You're not forcing them to buy stuff for you, but you're giving them options. And, you know, once you invited them to your space and you nurtured them, then you have to remember to put call to actions there and actually do the selling. I sometimes see brands do the nurturing bit really well, but they never say anything about where you can buy that thing, or, you know, or even like sign up to my newsletter, nothing. So it's really important that you remember to put call to actions and everything. And call to actions doesn't have to be buy this, buy this, buy this, but you need to give if someone takes the time to read your caption, you need to give them somewhere to go afterwards, basically. You know, where else can they go? Or do you want them to go and see a video you did where you can see that product in action, or do you want them to go to your website? Whatever it is, you need a call to action. I think that's how you service your community. And as we said in the beginning, you know, they're there for you. If they weren't interested, they would just not be there. They would go and look at some other brand, or they would just like go and put their phone away and do something completely different. They're there for you. So in that moment, that's what they want. They want to be told what you have to offer them, and they want to be entertained, and then what is the next step.
It's a really great opportunity to show that you're the leader in this space as well. So if you think of it almost like a pyramid, everybody there is following you. They might be following each other, but the purpose of your platform on Instagram is that they are all there for you. They are all watching you. So for you to take them and guide them on this journey of your products, you're the one that knows where that product came from. You know why it's in the world. You know how much it is. You know what it smells like. You know what it feels like. And so really taking them on that journey of the product and not being afraid to take the horse to water. Yes, they're there watching, but not always are they going to buy. So maybe there is some time pressure on there of saying, you know, somebody's birthday's coming up, or we've got Thanksgiving, or we've got Christmas, like reminding them there. Maybe there's like only a limited number available. So those sort of like extra added sort of nudges towards the checkout can really serve you well.
Yeah, and the final point really is to have patience with your customer journey. We, us, I guess, as a society are getting more and more about like instant gratification, right? But it's not like that. As we said, you know, if you see something that you want to buy your child for Christmas, you might not, you know, be ready to buy that right here and now. You might want to wait until payday, or you want to wait closer to Christmas because maybe their taste will change by that time, you know. So have patience with your customer journey. You know, it's going to take a lot of trust to like build up a nurturing community on Instagram. It's going to take a lot of trust that the work you're putting into it is going to lead to sales. So you're going to have to show a little bit of patience and basically stick with it for a bit. So here are some examples for you that of people that I think are good at selling. So yeah. And then we're going back into the audit bit. So Antonia.
Hello, everyone.
We thought maybe you could start with telling us a little bit about your shop.
Okay. Oh, there's me. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So I just celebrated my fifth business birthday.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I needed a break. It's been an eventful 5 years. Yeah. So I've got a lifestyle store in North London. We've been through a bit of an evolution over the years. I'm quite big on the storytelling, which you touched on before, and I do have a good go at selling on Instagram, with varying degrees of success. But I think the thing to hold on to, which is also what you mentioned, which is that holding on to the fact that it does take a while to get the sale. You don't necessarily see it immediately ping in your Shopify or whatever you use. I find, for me, I'm very much in a local kind of residential area, and I find that local people generally will watch on Instagram, and they'll listen, and they'll know my story, and they know where the products are from, and then they'll come into the store and you get the sale that way. So it's not necessarily always, for those of you who are in a position like mine where you've got a local store, it's not necessarily translating directly into an online sale right away, but they are with you on that journey, and then they do come, for Christmas and birthdays and all that sort of thing. So I think just don't be disheartened if your online sales aren't going crazy, because you are still loving your customer through showing up on Instagram. Sorry, I've gone right off on a tangent there.
No, I love it. How long have you been on Instagram?
Since 2011. Had a little play with the blog for a while, and then I felt very icky about selling, so I started my blogs because I knew I needed people to sell to, and then when it came to it and I opened my store, I felt so icky about the sales and I didn't know how to do it. So I just froze and started a different account. It was all a big mess. But now I will completely off the cuff just do an Instagram live. So if I'm in the shop, I think, right, okay, what's new? And I'll just, it's never planned.
Say what you see.
Yeah, it's always really messy. But people do say, like, the feedback is, oh, I love watching your lives, and, oh, that's great, where can I get that? And going back to selling in the DMs, I have customers who I do try-ons for, and I send, in the DMs, because they'll be like, oh, they're not necessarily around the corner, so maybe they're like the customers further afield. But
I love that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of customers that I do it for. They say, oh, I wonder if it will fit me, and so then I do the full video for them.
Service over sales.
Exactly, yes. And I think as a small business, as I'm sure many of you are, that's the point of difference. That's how we can stand out. So it's the fact that people feel that they know you. Whenever I go to a trade show, I will always do stories about it. I might even do a reel this time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, lots to learn, because it's always evolving, always changing. But the fact that people are complaining about reels now, I remember when I was first blogging, people would say, oh, Instagram's hiding my posts. So it's
always
not
something.
It's not new. It's just a different thing.
Yeah.
But so you just have to, I had to have a good talk with myself a few months ago, and just say, right, stop resisting the reels. You've got to do it. And there are clever ways to make them simple as well.
I love how you use storytelling. I have been checking your Instagram several times yesterday because I'm waiting for the ending of something. Like you posted redoing the shop window, I've still not seen the reveal.
Well, I'm here. It takes time.
So I am waiting. So I think it's a
leaves are
great
up.
thing.
Yes.
Like, you left me on the cliffhanger,
I'm
and
sorry.
I'm like,
it's coming.
ready.
It's coming. Yeah. So for that, all I did was I got a tripod, and I put my phone on the stop motion thing, and I was time lapse. Sorry, time lapse. And it was really simple, but then I'm seeing lots of static images that just gently zoom in and out, and that's again very simple. So it's just that. For me, someone like me who's been on Instagram a long time and used to curated feeds and static posts, it's that kind of switching over. But it is doable. And, although sometimes I'm frustrated with growth and all that kind of thing, but, people genuinely come in and they go, oh, you've been, I saw that you were back home, because the kind of backstory to my brand is that it's Mediterranean inspired, which is kind of like my life story. Born and bred in Spain. Been living in the UK for a number of years now. But yes, that kind of aesthetic is very much rooted in that. So whenever I go home to my parents, I'm always sharing that. Like people really connect with that side of it. So yeah, it's definitely worth doing, because and showing up, as hard as it is sometimes, because people do know your brand inside out.
And we put Antonia's Instagram handle. It's Tailor-Made Living Store, so you can go and follow her. So we in this audit, we have actually spoken to Antonia before, because we did it. We had a little Zoom and talked about it, and Antonia has made some changes since. So
It's had a glow up since we had a chat. But it's really, I think, helpful to get somebody from outside to have a look and tell you, what's going on, because I consider myself to be, fair Instagram expert. I've been around for a long time. But then, Elizabeth and Therese will discuss some of the changes, but, just that kind of lifestyle store thing there, wasn't really helping me. There's a few things in there that then when I reviewed your comments, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I can see that doesn't make sense, because the way we consume now is it has to be quick, and you want to get to the thing really fast, and you want to understand, like, okay, I've literally haven't got time for this. So
it makes sense
I just want to know what you are. Yeah,
right?
It makes sense to me. And then also, as somebody who's very engaged with their brand and their story, so I'm very much like, no, this is the brand. But of course, it's then thinking, well, what's the user doing? Because that's the thing. Social media is not about you or even about your brand. It's about the people who are consuming it. So, so that's why, it's good to consult.
I think one thing we put up, we can quickly whiz through it. What time is it?
We have 15 minutes.
Okay. So lifestyle store, like you just mentioned about the Mallorca element, I think, adding that in there, change tailor-made to something else this is the same as your Instagram. So you can see in the actual handle at the top it says tailor-made, but it also says tailor-made here. This bold bit here is searchable. So if somebody already knows to search tailor-made, that you will already come up. So using that bold bit there, you can use for something completely different other than your actual Instagram handle.
It's prime real estate, but you can only change it every 14 days. So, don't do it right now.
Yeah,
have a think about it.
Yeah, and also what I see here is people doing it to make it look like aesthetic. So they'll put like a space between each letter, but obviously then it's not searchable at all. So just making sure you're using it in a clever way.
Yes. And if you go to Antonia's profile now, while we're talking through this, you will actually be able to see the little things that you put in place and
before and
figure
after.
out the changes.
Spot the difference.
Yeah. We were very much changing, saying lifestyle store. What kind of lifestyle store? That is quite generic. Like, whose lifestyle is that for, So Antonia changed that.
It's just such a good point. But, I'm like, well, I know my brand. I know what my business is. But, of course, it's that the people who are shopping don't know that.
So making clear what you're selling, basically, and who you're selling to. And then in your bio, we had some feedback as well as we said, you don't have to be the face of your brand, but sometimes it's easier to connect, especially when you're starting out, I think, and people don't know about your store or your brand, to connect with like you as a person. So, but that's completely dependent on how you want to show up on your Instagram. But sometimes I have a picture of myself, for example, so because it's just so much easier for you to connect with me.
I've
than my
played with
face.
both, and I've had advice to do both of those. So, yeah, at the moment I'm running with the logo, but you know, who knows? I don't think there's a. Yeah, I think when you're starting out, definitely your face is helpful.
It's just more memorable, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also it's whatever you're more comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because obviously you've actually got your name tagged in your bio as well.
Yeah.
And there you can see your face.
Yeah.
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 And on TikTok, that's the advice if anyone's playing with TikTok, to have your face instead of your
It's very
brand.
much like person first, business second
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
TikTok, whereas Instagram, it's kind of 50-50.
And then we were saying independent business, that's great. That's maybe something people are really interested in at the moment. But could you say the same thing, but still like making like a bit of a call to action, like shop small, for example? Because that probably hints on the fact that you are an independent business without saying it that way. We were saying that, you know, effortless style for you and your home. Could it be a little bit more specific? Like, we love the Mallorcan thing because it instantly makes you think Mediterranean, really like
unique,
light
isn't
and airy, and it makes it unique. Yeah. And then we were saying put it into bullet points to make it easier to read, and that's something you can see if you go on her profile now. And instead of Linktree, which is guiding your traffic to a third-party platform, essentially, you could easily, well, relatively easily, create a page that is not a like visible page on your website, where you just do a number of buttons.
Yeah, just create a new page, put it on the secondary navigation so it's not in the menu. Just put insert button, insert button, insert button over and over and again. I went on YouTube. It was like a 1-minute tutorial on there if you get stuck.
We both have it on ours if you want to have a look at examples.
Yeah, if you you note it, even if you screenshot the traffic difference between your website now and what it would be after, it's absolutely huge, because Linktree are getting all of that like initial landing traffic, and then potentially it's going onto your website, whereas actually you want that first click to go straight to your website and increase your traffic.
And then you will be able to see it in your analytics
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
But of course, it's one of those things that is another job to add to your very long to-do list.
I know. Yeah, get on YouTube. I promise it's quick. And then highlights. So there was quite a few highlights on the bio, and we just said to tidy it up to be no more than 8 to 10 highlights, with each one having 10 stories in per highlight. Keeping it up to date and relevant, creating one for new in or whatever's the shop walkthrough that week that Antonia was mentioning. We love the fact that she'd put the opening hours in there, because it actually showed the that you are a physical shop. Mm-hmm. I've just seen it's Menorca there. Is that where you're from? Not Mallorca.
It's all right. I won't hold it against you.
Okay, sorry. And you've also got an app that people can shop directly with you.
That's
don't you?
right,
So
yes.
we were saying to promote that as a highlight, and it's just making. I think highlights have become like a bit of a dumping ground. I know we both cleared ours up before we came, didn't we? There was like
Mine are
quite
very
a few.
empty because I didn't have that much time.
Yeah, but just don't allow it to go on and on and on and on and on, because if somebody is coming new to your page, you just want to use that area for them to skip through, know who you are, know what you're about, know what you've got to buy, and yeah, maybe a little bit of behind the scenes.
I often look at the highlights before I decide to follow someone. So think about what you want that first person to actually experience on your page.
Yeah.
I think it's important. And then we have the actual grid, and Antonia's grid is beautiful. She has really consistent imagery. It's always so pretty. Like, I know I will always be inspired when I go to her page. It's really pretty. So there's not like she's doing a lot of wrong things, you know. We just had a few things that we thought she can add to it.
So you're already showing your face quite often, which is brilliant. So again, if you are constantly putting things onto your grid, just making sure that you are one of the top 9 posts, I would say, if you're comfortable with that, because again, it just builds that bond and connection, the know, like, and trust that we were saying earlier. If you have a look on Antonia's page, there is one video that says 5 years ago today or something along those lines.
Yes, I've taken your advice and changed things up a bit. But as I say, I come from the curated Instagram era, so I'm having a bit of trouble letting go. But it is effective. I do understand that, the aesthetics moved on and people do want social media to be more real, don't they? Whereas, everyone's just tired of the unattainable Instagram life. So, yeah.
So we said you just put a title on your videos. So you put a cover image for your videos so people know if they end up on your grid to click on that video for a certain thing. So if it's a table scale, I can't say the word, but, a table setting, or if it's, the shop or whatever. So people know why they should click on that, because we have different interests, of course. And it also makes it stand out as a video, I suppose, as well. And then to use more call to actions, it is scary to actually tell people to buy it, but to use call to actions in the captions a little bit more. And we love the walkthroughs in the shop.
We can see them on the stories, but quickly looking at the grid, like we said, it's amazing that it's very seasonal. You can see that it's summer, it's very outdoorsy, but we want to see the indoors as well. And actually see that you have a shop that we can come and see you and visit you. Yeah,
really good point.
I think it's so nice, and then it becomes a bit of a destination, right? Like, I follow some shops that I'm most likely never going to visit because they're so far away and they're maybe not in an area where I would normally travel to. But the shop walkthroughs really let you feel like you visited that shop, and I think. Yeah, I
do them on stories, but it's that, it hadn't occurred to me until you mentioned it. When you said to me, we'll do more walkthroughs, I think I do them all the time, but of course I don't. I do them on stories, but they're not on the grid. So somebody new coming doesn't get the tour.
Or also, if somebody's new to your shop, about how to find the shop as well. So, if you're coming from this direction, this is what it looks like, this is what to look out for. And then when they go, they're like, I feel like I've already been here. And it's that familiarity, which is nice.
Yeah. One that I love that I saw that was someone else that maybe you could do, they'd done where to park and then how to get from the parking to the shop. I thought that was quite clever.
Service.
Yeah, very much service. And that's pretty much, no, we have one more, I forgot about it. This is basically this one is from Linktree, right? But you can create your own. But we like that the shop bit is fast. Maybe instead of saying join the wait list, it can be a little bit more saying why you should join the mailing list. Because, we get, our inboxes are crowded, so we need a reason to sign up. Why should you go to follow Antonia on TikTok? So maybe that could be why there too. And then depending on the blog, is that really where you want to guide people? If you've written a new blog, then maybe yes. But if you haven't written one for a long time, are you doing your blog mostly for SEO? And therefore, is that going to add value to the customer coming from Instagram? And then download the app. So why should they download the app? And again, Pinterest, a lot of people use Pinterest mainly to drive traffic for their website. So would anyone that finds you on Instagram be interested in going to your Pinterest? And would you really rather drive traffic to Pinterest rather than to your website?
I hadn't thought of it like that. I just thought, look at my lovely ball.
That aesthetic
I put a lot
coming in again, isn't it? Yeah. It's just that
Can you see what's my jam?
Yeah. What's in it for them? Why should they do all of those things?
Yeah. So that is it. And now I broke it.
Yeah, there should be one more.
There was a slide with our Instagram handles, but I broke it. So I think we have only 5 minutes. I don't know if we have time for questions. Yeah, they're saying yes. So if anyone has any questions.
Therese, do you want to take the
Huh?
Hello, sorry.
Hi.
Yeah, I just want to ask, when you went onto Instagram and you started marketing it, what was your percentage sales increase when you started to...
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have the numbers precisely. When I did really see an increase was during lockdowns, and I was selling from my bedroom. So I moved my shop into my bedroom, and I was probably doing about 70% of my take-ins in store just online from Instagram Lives. So it doesn't exactly answer your question, but just to give you an idea of kind of the impact it can have.
It was significant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one more question. Do you reckon it's better to do it yourself or give it to a freelance company who's more specialised in it? Or
In my personal experience, I feel it's better to do it yourself, but that, I think, depends on your product, how much of the story you want to tell. So I have had social media managers a couple of times, but then found that they couldn't quite capture my voice. And then there were issues with things like, so you'd schedule to sell a product. So I only have I buy in small quantities. So, just to be completely honest, I sometimes have 3, 6, 12s, whatever. And so that post might have been scheduled like 3 weeks ago. By the time it's due to go out, that product's out of stock, so I don't really want to promote it unless it's on a waiting list. So then I just found that I was having to be very hands-on in terms of checking what was going out, what was in, having to replace it. So for me, I think it's better for me to run it. But then, as I say, it's quite a personal choice. I really care about how I sound. People know me as the face of my store and my brand, so it's important for it to sound like me. So yeah, very personal choice, I'd say.
Thank you for that.
That's right.
Any other questions? Over here.
Hi, my name is Minali. I'm from India, and I have a toy brand, educational toy brand. And already I have like 27,000 followers on Instagram. But as a brand owner, it's very difficult to be always personal because you have to maintain the sanity of the brand also. But when I go personal, I get the real views till millions also, and sometimes the views are 2,000. And it's very confusing that where are you going wrong, because sometimes the views are very good, sometimes they're very bad, and you can't go personal all the time. And Instagram says that you have to come on the page, you have to sell it personally, but as a brand, it's very difficult to be personal all the time. So what should we do for that?
I think you're very right. As a brand, you can't, it can't be just your face. It needs to be clear what you're selling. When you look at the grid, like we did on Antonia's grid, it needs to be instantly clear that what your product is. So, maybe you need to use your products more in your reels, but to be honest, the varying views in reels, and posts, it's going to happen, because if it ends up on the Explore feed, you're going to get more. If you happen to get a trending sound, it's going to get more. But are those views, when you get 1 million views, are they actually genuine potential customers to yours? So then you need to think about, am I posting the right reels? Is it, you want the reels, even if you get the 2,000 people watching it, if they're your customer, that's better than getting them 1 million views, in my mind. So, create content for your customer, not to just get the views. It's all about servicing your customer and connecting with your customers. And then, hopefully the views comes rather than, focusing on trending TikTok dances or something.
It goes back. Hello. About the service over sales, and making sure that you're creating content that converts rather than content to go viral, like the whole purpose of the platform and the purpose why you're using it. If you go viral, it's a bonus, but I don't think it's the reason to be posting.
And often it's like a vanity metric anyway,
Yeah.
isn't it? I mean, my best performing reel is one of me ironing to Harry Styles. And that didn't get me any sales.
Mine is me having fish fingers and waffles for dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, that was true because the one which got viral for me was my great-grandmother was using my product. So people got crazy, okay, like 89-year-old person is using the product. So it was more emotional than, just selling the product. But the point is when we go personal, the views are more, but I don't want to go that much personal because then the sanity of the brand doesn't, match the page. So.
But when you do go and do a personal video, does it lead to sales?
Not that much. People just appreciate, okay, oh wow, kind of thing. I think that's...
You might just be moving them further towards the checkout. They might not buy. That might not be the post that converts them, but it might get them one step closer.
You have to choose how much you're willing to show up. It's about what you're willing to offer them. So if you're not going after like the £1 million going viral views, then maybe you don't have to do it that often, but maybe you need to make sure that it's part of it often enough so people remember that it's you, So whether that is, how we said like every 9 squares, basically the 9 squares is what you see on your profile. The top 9 is what you see when you land on someone's profile. So maybe it's just that every 9th post is something more personal. And you start there and see how it goes.
And also, I think you need to be the boss of Instagram, not Instagram be the boss of you.
Exactly.
Speaking of as someone who, sometimes you can feel like you don't have any control, but you can make it work in a way that works for you. And so I think just don't lose sight of that. It's a tool in your business. It shouldn't be telling you how to run your business and, how to show up online.
Yeah.
Just last question. Selling on Instagram, the ads are important part of it. I mean, it is important to run ads on Instagram or?
Not necessarily. I think you should only be running ads when you're organic. When you've mastered it organically, then you put ads to it. It's literally like the same as this microphone. If there was nobody here and what it was that we were talking about wasn't of interest, the microphone's not going to make them more interested. That's the way you should kind of see it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, in the back.
Hi, my name's Thomas Tyrrell. I've got an interiors store. How do you find inspiration to post on Instagram? Sometimes I feel like I'm talking about the same thing, the same candle over and over again.
I love seeing the same thing over again because I don't see all your posts.
I know, yeah. It's like on the one hand we say everyone is going to get sick of me, and then on the other hand it's like no one's seeing my posts, and then we have to think, well, which one is it likely? It's probably this one. But if you do keep saying the same thing over and over again, you're worrying that you're boring your audience, but it kind of goes back to that first point about assuming the worst rather than assuming the best. And so what about if actually you talking about that same product over and over again is actually just convincing somebody more and more to buy it, and then by the 6th time they see it, they're like, oh, go on then, I'll have it. I would say don't worry about it, to be honest. Just keep going. Do it in a reel, do it in a carousel, do it in a picture, do it in a story, do it on a live. Like, that's how it's different. But people do need to see it multiple times.
I think just jumping in there, as you've got, I imagine, an aspirational kind of, interior store, I think the styling is so key if you're looking for inspiration. And people would look at you as an expert anyway. So, just showing your expertise and, why you chose certain pieces and how you would accessorize, that sofa with that table console and those, kind of... Because people are used to seeing very beautiful images of interiors and, kind of these lifestyles, and you're the taste maker, basically. So I think that's what you really need to capitalize on, and really helping people because they don't know how to put it together. I mean, yeah. I find that with the customers that I speak to in my store, they'll be like, oh no, I wouldn't have thought to put like that candle in that tray with that vase. And that's what you're bringing. But of course you take it for granted because you're you and your business, but other people don't know how to do that and they admire you for that. So I think really hold on to that and draw inspiration from, but again, it goes back to service, doesn't it? That's how you're helping your customer. Anyway, I'm going to write down all of my own advice.
Yeah,
and
I think
maybe
that's
put it
great
in place
advice.
later.
I think you could both post about your candles. You could probably come up with at least 30 different posts about this candle. Like it's well, if you sit down and look at it, and they can be slightly different. It's for slightly different people. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Was there any other questions? I know we've already run over, so. Oh,
I thought my voice was loud enough. You were saying earlier on about the grid and about how obviously customers who've never been on your page won't know you, but the power of stories against the grid, because I am rubbish at all of this, and sometimes I'll have a spurt. Like the last day, 24 hours, I've been around the show doing stories, but I'm not supporting that with anything on my grid. If I do the grid, I'll send it to my story, but the other way round, should I be supporting my stories with a grid post?
You can just turn your story posts into a reel.
Yeah.
Just save them. If you go onto your stories, I think there's three dots somewhere, and you could just save the video, save, upload it, make it into a reel, and then it goes. I'll show you after.
And you have to remember, when you go on stories, you're marketing and nurturing your customers that are already following you. No one else sees that, only people that follow you. So when you go on your grid, you have the chance to be discovered by other people. So you need a combination of both.
Well, thank you for joining us, everybody.
Thank you very much.
If you do want to join us on Instagram, this is our handles. Small Business Collaborative, Elizabeth Stiles, and Tailor Made Living Store. Like we said, if you want the slides, just drop us a DM with your email and we'll make sure to get that over to you. And I'm also hosting a course in a couple of weeks called the Sales Project. So if you do want to learn a little bit more about selling on Instagram, it's 4 weeks. It's really fun, jam-packed with tips. So come take a look.
And we'll stick around a little bit if anyone wants to
we're here
chat
all afternoon
as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.